At 6 o'clock in the evening, on the 6th of July, 1988, the most dangerous thing on Piper Alpha was a 2-foot gap and a piece of paper. A maintenance crew had spent the day working on one of the platform's condensate pumps, one of the big pumps that pushed gas off the rig and sent it back toward shore. They had removed a safety valve to ship it away for testing, and in its place, they had fitted a temporary metal cover, a blank, held on by hand and sitting high up on the pipework, out of easy sight. The job was not finished. The pump was not safe to run. And so the engineer did exactly what the system asked of him. He filled out a permit, a formal written order, that said this pump must not be started under any circumstances. Then he carried that permit into the control room, set it down, and went off shift. Hold on to that piece of paper, because in a few hours, in the dark, someone is going to start that pump, and 167 men are going to die. This is the story of how a warning that was written down correctly still never reached the one person who needed to read it. Piper Alpha stood in the North Sea, about 120 miles northeast of Aberdeen, in Scotland, and on that night it held 226 men. It was an oil and gas production platform operated by a company called Occidental, and for a while it had been one of the most productive rigs in the whole North Sea. A small steel city, working around the clock, where the men slept and ate in a block stacked on top of the machinery that never stopped. It did not stand alone. It was tied by undersea pipelines to 2 neighboring platforms, Tartan and Claymore, and gas flowed between them. That connection mattered enormously, and we will come back to it. But the thing to understand about Piper Alpha on the 6th of July is that it was a place built to keep producing, and everything about the night that followed depended on how hard it is to make a machine like that stop. Now go back to the paper. At 6 in the evening, the shift changed. The men who had worked on the pump went off, and a fresh night crew came on. On Piper Alpha, the permit-to-work system, the system that was supposed to track exactly this, which machines were safe and which were not, leaned heavily on word of mouth, on one person telling the next. And in that handover, the permit that mattered most got separated from the men who needed it. There were 2 permits tied to that pump, one for the overhaul, and one that said simply, "Do not start it." The night crew found the first. The second, the warning, was never handed across. It was somewhere in the control room, but as far as the men now running the platform were concerned, it did not exist. They believed the pump was simply idle, available, waiting. For a few hours nothing happened because nothing needed to. The platform was running on its other condensate pump, and the gas kept moving. And then, late in the evening, that other pump tripped and stopped. This was the moment everything depended on. With that pump down, the pressure would start to fall, and the flow of gas off the platform would falter. And to the men in the control room, that was a problem to be solved in minutes, not hours. They needed a pump. And there, on their paperwork, was one that appeared to be ready to go. So they did the reasonable thing, the thing the night seemed to demand. They started the spare pump, the one with a safety valve missing and a temporary cover held on by hand that a piece of paper somewhere in that same room was begging them not to touch. The gas found the gap almost at once. From the loose cover, high on the pipework, condensate began to escape. Only a small amount, perhaps 30 kilograms, released over about 30 seconds. But this was gas under pressure, in an enclosed steel module, and it needed only something to light it. It found one. At around 9:45, the first explosion tore through the heart of the platform, and here the design of Piper Alpha turned a serious accident into a catastrophe. The walls between its modules were firewalls, built to hold back flames. They were not built to withstand a blast. The explosion blew straight through them, and it destroyed almost immediately the control room, the one place from which the whole platform could have been shut down and coordinated. In the first minute, Piper Alpha lost its brain. After that, the platform began to feed on itself. The system that should have flooded the rig with seawater, the automatic deluge, had been switched to manual, a routine precaution taken when divers were working below, and in the chaos, no one turned it on. And then came the worst of it. Out on Tartan and Claymore, the two neighboring platforms, the crews could see Piper Alpha burning on the horizon, but they kept pumping oil and gas toward it, not out of malice, out of structure. Their job was to keep producing, and the authority to stop, to shut down and cut the flow, did not rest with the men watching the fire. It rested with Piper's control room, which no longer existed. So for a critical stretch of time, the neighbors kept feeding gas into the disaster until the great pipelines carrying it, the risers, softened in the heat and ruptured, and each one sent up a fireball that engulfed the platform. What had been an explosion became an inferno that could be seen for miles, and through all of this, most of the men had done exactly what they had been trained to do. The emergency drill on Piper Alpha said, "In an emergency, go to the accommodation block, the living quarters up above the machinery, muster there, and wait to be let off by helicopter." So that is where they went. Scores of them gathered in the galley, the mess room, and waited for instructions and for rescue that the procedure promised would come. But no helicopter could land in that fire and smoke. And the accommodation block had not been sealed against what was now pouring into it. Slowly, terribly, the room where they had been told they would be safest filled with thick black smoke. The men who followed the rule, who stayed and waited as they had been taught, were, for the most part, the men who did not come home. When the platform was later searched, the largest number of the dead were found there, together, in the place that was supposed to save them. The ones who lived mostly were the ones who disobeyed. Out on the edges of the platform, in the heat and the noise, individual men made a choice that every instinct and every instruction argued against. They climbed to the rails, 70, 100 feet above a sea that was itself on fire in patches with burning oil, and they jumped. Many of them survived that fall and were pulled from the water by a rescue boat, the Silver Pit, and by fast little craft that raced in under the flames. It should be said plainly, the men who broke the rule to muster and wait and jumped instead were far more likely to be alive the next morning than the men who obeyed it. Rescue itself cost lives. On one of those small boats, the Sandhaven, 2 crewmen were killed by a fireball as they reached in to pull a survivor aboard. They went toward the fire on purpose to get other men out, and they did not come back. By the time the sea was quiet, of the 226 men who had been on Piper Alpha, 61 were alive. 167 were not. When it was over, Scotland held a long, careful public inquiry, led by a judge named Lord Cullen, and Cullen did not find a single villain or a single broken part. He found a system. He found that the permit to work procedure, the very thing that should have stopped that pump from ever being started, had been run loosely, informally, for a long time, and that warnings from an earlier death on the platform had gone unheeded. The failure was not one lost slip of paper. It was a whole way of working in which a lost slip of paper could kill. Cullen made 106 recommendations, and every single one was accepted. Offshore safety was taken away from the government department that had both promoted the oil industry and policed it, an obvious conflict, and handed to an independent regulator. Companies were made to write and prove a formal case for the safety of every platform. Occidental was found to have failed in its maintenance and its procedures. No one was ever criminally charged, which is why Piper Alpha is not really a story about a pump, or even about one missing valve. It is a story about the space between a rule and the people it is meant to protect. The warning existed. It was written down. It was correct. It said exactly the right thing. Do not start this pump. And it still failed because it never made the short journey from one shift to the next, from the paper to the hand on the switch. We are living through another season of industrial deaths right now. Workers killed in plants and tanks and refineries, in accidents that inquiries will, once again, trace back not to some exotic failure, but to a warning that someone gave and no one carried across. That is the Piper Alpha question, and it is not a comfortable one. The danger is rarely that the rule was missing. It is that the rule was there, and the handover was gone. But the postmortem writes itself. The only question is whether anyone reads it before the next one.